Good meowing, guys, gals, MBs, and YouTube catters. Burst Protocol has officially released with the pre-release event that was this past weekend. And as the title says, unfortunately did not win the tournament, did not get first place, but we did get second place with Elfnotes Whiteforest. And I wanted to actually take the time to discuss not only the deck list that we played this past weekend, but what I liked and disliked about the archetype, since the archetype is still very brand new. This is the first chance of actually getting my hands on the cards to playtest and kind of see and figure out the lines and figure out what all the deck can do and what all the different interactions and how the deck can really play. So I'm going to show off the deck list, and then I'm going to talk about what the deck feels like it's missing, like the pros and cons really of playing the Elfnotes package over something like a pure whiteforest build. So there are some pros and cons, and there are some different things that you can weigh when deciding how to build your whiteforest deck. But before we get into that, I'd just like to ask that if you found this video helpful, to like, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff, comment down below. We are so very close to hitting partnered with YouTube. We're only a few watch hours away, less than 100 watch hours away. So anything really helps. And I appreciate all the support that I've had so far since making Yu-Gi-Oh content. So without further ado, let's just get into the deck list, and let me switch over to my hand camera. Before we show up the deck list, since this is the first time a lot of people are seeing the Elfnotes engine, and this was questions asked in my previous YouTube video, I want to take the time to go over the Elfnotes engine again. In simplest terms, the Elfnote engine is basically like a Kashtira engine for this deck, except all of the Elfnote monsters are level 6 spellcasters. They all can inherently special summon to the center main monster zone. They all have effects on the field during your turn, and then during your opponent's turn, if they're on any other zone other than the center main monster zone, you can switch them with another monster that's on the main monster zone, and they get an effect when they switch. It's all one effect, so they would have to like imperm or effect veiler the effect to target to switch. So for instance, Elfnote Tinia, when she switches with a monster in the center main monster zone, she is a hand rip. You can banish one random card face up from your opponent's hand. For the other Elfnote cards, let's just go through each name real fast. We have Elfnote Tinia, the blue one, level 6 spellcaster, 2400 attack, 1800 defense. You can special summon this card from your hand to the center main monster zone. You can only special summon Elfnote Tinia once per turn period. So even cards like off the continuous spell that say special summon from deck, you would not be able to do specifically Tinia. I believe all the Elfnotes have that line as well. And then you can use each of the following effects once per turn. During your main phase, a key thing to know for the Elfnotes is their on-field effect is an ignition effect. It's not a trigger on their normal or special summon. The Elfnote cards are kind of weak going second into already pre-established boards, because you can go special summon Elfnote Tinia, and now your opponent has a window to respond. But going first, it does let us play around a lot of different hand traps and choose when we want to activate the Elfnote cards. During your main phase, you can place one continuous Elfnote spell from your deck face up on the field. Very important to know that it does not search, it does not set, it just places it straight face up on the field. And the continuous spell we're always going to get with Tinia is Elfnotes Welcome Home. Elfnotes Welcome Home says that the monster in your center main monster zone cannot be destroyed by card effects. You can send one monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, and then you can special summon one Elfnote monster with a different original attribute from your deck in defense position. After you activate that effect, you cannot special summon from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except for synchro monsters. The next Elfnote monster is Elfnotes Lucina. This is basically your Kashtira Fenrir, and Elfnotes Lucina during your main phase lets you search any other Elfnote monster from your deck to your hand. And then when she is swapped from another main monster zone to the center main monster zone, she bounces a level 6 or lower monster your opponent controls back to the hand. Then we have the yellow Elfnote, Elfnote Fortuna. A lot of the times with the Elfnote Lucina, you're going to be searching out the Fortuna for your combo lines, just so you can have all of the Elfnotes in rotation. But Elfnote Fortuna, again, has the ability to special summon to your center main monster zone. Very important to note also, it is a light spellcaster, so she is also searchable with Recilia. But Elfnote Fortuna during your main phase lets you place Elfnote's Continuous Trap from your hand or your deck, and the Elfnote's Continuous Trap is always going to be the best one we have so far is Elfnote's Rhapsodia of Madness. A lot of the time you're going to be ending with this card on the field, because while you control a monster in your center main monster zone, your opponents cannot attack except to attack that monster. You can send one monster from your hand or field to the graveyard, then target one Elfnote monster in your graveyard with a different original attribute and special summon it. Then if you control a synchro monster, which again with whiteforest we're always going to be ending on synchro monsters on the field, you can negate the effects of one face-up card your opponent controls until the end of this turn. Very important to note that it does not target. This also allows us to recycle our Elfnote monsters from the graveyard and summon them to like any other monster zone, and then now during our opponent's turn we have the effect to swap it with something in our main monster zone to activate their other interruption effects on the field. And then finally, our last Elfnote monster is Elfnote's Power Patron, the level 1 tuner, and that's basically all the nice things I can say about this, because this card right now is a hard brick for the deck and one of the downsides of the deck if you open this card. Elfnote Power Patron is a Fiend level 1 tuner. It has a lock while it's on the field of you cannot special summon from the extra deck except synchro monsters while it's on the field. Of course, if you synchro off with it, then that lock is gone. And then you can only use one of each of the following effects once per turn for Elfnote Power Patron. The first one is during the main phase, you can target one monster in your center main monster zone, increase its level by 3 until the end of the turn. Then immediately after this effect resolves, you can synchro summon one Elfnote synchro monster or Genora Power Patron of Tuning. Spoiler for the extra deck, we are not playing the Power Patron of Tuning because it's way too hard to make for this deck. And then if this card is sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can add any Elfnote card from your deck to your hand. So it's basically like an Azaelzet for the archetype that still eats our normal summon if we have it in our hand. So what we're going to be making a lot of the time with the Elfnote cards are as part of our lines. Outside of level 10s, the level 1 and the level 6 will make the level 7 Elfnote's Seraphim Stolitzia. Stolitzia is a level 7 synchro, and this card's attack while it's in the center main monster zone becomes 3000. Then during the main phase, it has the quick effect. You can special summon one level 6 or lower Elfnote's monster from your hand or graveyard. Then you can reduce the levels if you want of all level 4 or higher monsters on the field by 3 until end of turn. So sometimes it can be an interruption for other synchro decks or for Xyz decks like K9, for instance, by modulating their levels so now they can't go into their rank 5 plays. So that line does come up every now and then if you want to end on this piece. But if you do that second effect, of course, you cannot special summon from the extra deck except synchro monsters this turn. So how does all of this play into whiteforest? So let's go over the deck list real fast. All right, so of course, this deck list is not finished. I was just playing a clean 40 cards for the tournament because I wanted to be as consistent as possible in seeing both my engines. Right now, as it stands with the release of Burst Protocol, we don't have a bridge from the Elfnotes into whiteforest. So there are some positives and negatives with playing this engine. Like I said, another positive is this engine is absolutely crazy when going first because the effects to just inherently special summon, eat your opponent's hand traps, eat their effect veilers, eat their imperms, eat their ash blossoms. The ability that we do have lines to make a monster effect negate on our fist summon before we search anything to play around a droll is extremely helpful with whiteforest, since that's really the only hand trap that absolutely kills all of our plays. So first and foremost, for the whiteforest engine, we are still on the 3LZ. We are still on the 3 Sylvie. Of course, these are your 6 best whiteforest cards. And then, as a surprise, our last whiteforest card is Azaelzet. This is all you need for the whiteforest engine. We cut the Stellar out. We're not playing Rusia. I could see a world eventually where you could try and put in Rusia, but she is still a brick in the opening hand. But at least with the Elfnotes monsters being level 6s, if you go special summon an Elfnotes monster to the center main monster zone, then normal summon your Rusia, and then make a 10 with those two, you're at least getting the Elfnotes off the board, and you're at least getting a level 10 synchro, whether it's like a Chaos Angel, a Levi Lazabelle, or anything like that. For the whiteforest spells and traps, we are on the 1 tails and then the 3 witch of the white forest. We are not playing woes in this deck. Like I said, we do have lines without playing into droll with the Elfnote stuff. Woes is only really good going first with droll being so prevalent. Droll getting hit down to 2 means we can kind of cheat a little bit and not have to play. I could see a world where, again, if we want to go up in card count, you could absolutely fit in the woes as another target for white forest. A lot of the times when I was playing matches, I already opened like a witch of the white forest, so the only search I had was a tails. I could also see putting in a sinful spoils of the white forest as another additional extender, especially when we have to use our normal summon on something like an Elfnotes power patron. We have the 1 Diabel the Black Witch to go into our sinful spoils lines, and then of course our sinful spoils cards, the 2 Wanted, the 1 Deception, the 1 Betrayal Silvera, the 1 Hallowed Azamina, and the 1 Debtors. A positive note of this deck is you might have noticed we're not playing a whole bunch of 1-of spells and traps that can brick our hand when we are going first. Like, we're not playing the sinful spoils of the white forest that needs a fiend, spellcaster, or illusion already on the field. Debtors is not even really a brick if we open another sinful spoils card, because then we can just make Illa Sylvia as our first action, and now we're doing everything under an Omni Negate. We are still on the 2 Wanted. I still haven't missed the 3rd Wanted. I know a lot of people are upset about not playing the 3rd Wanted. If you absolutely wanted to play a 41st card, you could play the 3rd Wanted. Never go less than 2, obviously, because you still want the ability to recycle them. Speaking of the Diabel's line and package, we are still on the 1 Diabel's the White Witch, the Diabel Star Vengeance, the Philia Diabel, and the Cursed Diabel. Still like your strongest package and always what you want to do last. And then finally, for the last engine is that Elfnote engine. We are on 3 Tinia, 1 Lucina, 1 Fortuna, and 1 Power Patron. If you were to play Elfnotes like in a quote-unquote pure build with Fiendsmith or even Medius, you would definitely play like triple Lucina as well, because this is your Kashtira Fenrir that searches your other names. I could see definitely playing triple Lucinia, triple Tinia. But for White Forest, 1, since we don't want a huge monster count, because we don't want to brick on spells and traps, Tinia and Fortuna represent a continuous spell and a continuous trap that we can just send for material for our White Forest stuff. So we always want to see the Tinia in our opener. We always want to start with Tinia if possible. And then Lucina is just going to be our 4th copy of Tinia, or our 2nd copy of Fortuna, to get into the rest of our lines. And then finally, wrapping up the Elfnote package is that 1 Elfnotes Welcome Home as our extender to special summon from deck, and our 1 Rhapsodia of Madness as our on-field negate inboard piece. And then for our non-engine, we are just on the 3 Fuwalos, the 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, the 2 Perulia, a triple tactics talent, and a Call by the Grave as our 40th card. Again, another downside of playing the Elfnotes engine is because, like playing Toy Box, because the engine is so robust, we don't really have a whole lot of room to play a lot of interruptions. So we don't get to main droll, we don't get to main spells, don't get to main Nibirus, don't get to main imperms, or droplets for that matter. So that is also something to take into consideration, how badly we need those cards, like a droplet or even like a Forbidden Crown going forward. The reason why I went with this hand trap lineup is because obviously Fuwalos and Ash Blossom, these are your best 6 hand traps in the format. Only Ash Blossom because it hits your enemy Mulcharmies, and then Fuwalos because it's Fuwalos. The reason why I went with 2 Perulia over anything, I had 2 drolls in the side and 2 ghost spells in the side to just swap in and out based off the matchup if Perulia is dead. But basically the thought process behind it is, if we're going second against our opponent, Perulia represents at least a replacement, because your opponent's always going to pretty much normal summon to start the turn. So it at least replaces itself into something that could be engine. The other case scenario is a lot of these decks are in this next format, or in this upcoming format, going to be special summoning from hand. Not necessarily a lot, but even if this card draws 2 or 3 or draws you into a Fuelos, drawing those 2 or 3 engine cards and starting your turn with a hand of 6 or 7 of all engine means that we're going to be breaking through a lot of boards. In the extra deck, we are on all of the whiteforest names: the Poplar, the Recilia, the Silvera, and the Diabel. We are on the Elfnotes Stelitzia that I talked about earlier in the video. Then for another level 7 for going second, we are on Black Rose Dragon. I made this card once during one of my matchups. I could definitely see a world where you don't play this card, but it is very good for breaking boards going second. It forces your opponent's interaction, deletes their back row, deletes their front row before we even go into our white forest lines. Then we are on Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. So I referenced it earlier, but we do have lines into Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon that we make this as our 5th summon before we search anything if we start with Elfnotes Tenia. I can show that off real fast. If we start with any monster that is not a fire in hand, where you would special summon our Tenia, we would go Tenia effect to place the continuous spell Welcome Home. Then we would activate Welcome Home, sending from our hand a monster with different attribute than the one we want to special summon. And the one we want to special summon is a fire. And we're going to send a water, and we are going to special summon the Elfnotes Power Patron. Then with our level 1 tuner and our level 6, we are going to make the level 7 Stelitzia. Again, with this line, if you are going second, we can just make Black Rose Dragon here to force out their interactions. And then we will not activate the effect of Power Patron because we are playing around Droll. We'll go effect of Stelitzia though to special summon back the Power Patron. We are not going to level modulate. You can choose not to level modulate. And then we're just going to immediately synchro them off into that Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Now we can use the effect of Elfnote Power Patron in our graveyard to search our next Elfnote monster. And we're always going to search that Lucina because that Lucina will let us search our Fortuna to get into that continuous trap. So now we have a monster effect negate on our 5th summon before we search anything to play around a Droll. I did this line twice in the first round against a Blue Eyes player, and they were losing their minds because their last card in hand was Droll and Lockbird. For the rest of the extra deck though, let's get back into it. We have our level 10s. We have Fabled Lazybell. This is also can be an inboard piece when we're synchroing off our Elfnote monsters using like our Sylvie. If we use our Sylvie to make the Recilia, we can, after we go into our Diabel, we can shuffle back the Recilia, summon the Sylvie, use the Sylvie and one of our level 6 Elfnote monsters to make our Fabled Lazybell. And this card has actually been pretty strong. It's not once per turn, funny enough, but we don't really get to use its effect more than once. During the main phase, you can tribute any number of Fabled monsters. And if you do, you take control of that many face-up monsters your opponent controls, and their effects are negated. So since we only have the one Fabled monster, we're always going to be tributing Lazybell. And it non-targeting steals a monster and negates its effects. So we can just steal an opponent's normal summon. We can steal their material so they can't go into 5s. We can steal their tuner so they can't go into synchro plays. This card has been a powerhouse recently, and it's been pretty nice in Genesis as well. That's where I've gotten to play with it most. Again, that effect is a soft once, so if you have any way of bringing back Lazybell, you can just do it again. Our other level 10 is our Chaos Angel. We are on the Snake Eyes Vengeance Dragon because of the Diabel Star Vengeance. Then we are still on Chorozo. Chorozo still unbricks our hands. Speaking of the Diabel Star Sinful Swallows package, we are on the 1 Murciliago, the 1 Illisylvia, and that's really just it. I was playing a Herald of the Arclight since we were still on the old ban list, but after the tournament, I threw it away. I repped it up, ate it, threw it away, and put in the Snake Eyes Doom Dragon for now. I don't know what goes into this slot. I did miss the Doomed Dragon when I was going forward board breaking or like ending on strong boards. So Doomed Dragon might take the slot. If we're playing around Luna Lights, like we're worried about Luna Lights, if Luna Light is prevalent in your area, this could be Psychic End Punisher to get around the tower monsters. This could also be the Zolin, which I pulled in my box after the tournament. That box opening video will be coming out on YouTube as well later this week. but I did not get to play with the Zolin, so I don't know if it's good or not. I've heard mixed reviews on that card. So for now, this is just a placeholder. And then our final card for the deck is just the 1 SP Little Knight. That was the list. Like I said, clean 40 cards, a quick like little overview, I guess a plus and minus, pros and cons of the deck. Going first, the engine is incredibly strong. Being able to force out your opponent's hand traps, like I said, is basically a cash tier engine. Your opponent is going to effect Veiler, it's going to imperm a lot of the hand traps that normally kill our deck, like Droll and Lockbird don't really matter. We have lines into Droll and Lockbird now, so that is a pro. It insulates your whiteforest combos, because if they affect Veiler, imperm, Ash, your Elfnote stuff before you even go into your whiteforest lines, then we still, like, worst case scenario, we just synchro off whatever Elfnote we summon into a level 10, and then we just go full whiteforest combo. One of the cons is this archetype is a lot worse into Perulia. Perulia is still definitely the best hand trap against our archetype in general, but this just makes it a lot worse. Also, the archetype is not very good into going second, because again, all of the effects of the Elfnotes, like to place those cards, are all ignition effects and not trigger effects. So your opponent, when you do special summon a Tinia or special summon any of your Elfnote monster, can just in response in the open game state pop your Tinia. So going second, it's not too great, but I think having that knowledge now, we can definitely side better. I don't want to show off my side deck right now, because it's going to need a lot of work for this new format. The siding patterns were very awkward going second with this deck, so I'm still trying to figure out that, but I could see a world where we basically side out everything but one of each name into all of our going second cards for the deck to make up for it. Outside of that, I really like this engine. The engine's, again, very strong going first, and technically strong going second, since it does eat your opponent's hand traps or hit your opponent's interactions on the board before you go into something like a Black Rose Dragon. So I could definitely see this being a future build of Whiteforest, if not the way to build Whiteforest in the future. But again, I don't want to be like other people on YouTube where it's like, this is the next top meta way to build Whiteforest. This makes Whiteforest tier 1. This is how you build Whiteforest going forward. Look at these insane lines kind of YouTuber. I want to be on the level with you, and it's going to require a lot more testing before I can say anything for certain with this deck. And who knows, we might see it pop up at the YCS coming up in Richmond. But for now, it's a lot of fun to test with. It's a lot of fun to play with, and we're going to be playing a lot more matches, and I'm going to be playing a lot more tournaments with this build, and trying to change out cards here and there to see what is the optimal playstyle for this deck. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, let me know down in the comments below. And if you found this video helpful, be sure to like and subscribe while you're at it. Again, we are super close to hitting partnered with YouTube. We're less than 60 watch hours away from hitting partnered with YouTube, so anything really does help push the video. If you'd like to see more Elfnote stuff in the future, I do plan on doing some remote duels here in the next couple of weeks, so if you're interested in seeing those videos, let me know down in the comments below. Also, Genesis Elfnotes is unhit aside from the Power Patron, so if you want to see some Genesis Whiteforest stuff, I do have Genesis Whiteforest builds that I have been playing and have been enjoying as well. So if you are interested in Genesis and want to play Whiteforest in Genesis, let me know down in the comments below, and I can make videos about that as well. So that being said, Catters, I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, good night.